when I read this story initially, the part that really kind of creeped me out was when the creature walked up on the deck and they could see it like on the other side of the sliding glass door, and it was like looking in, and it reminded me of that scene from Fargo where Steve Buscemi walks up on the woman's deck and he's looking in the window. It just creeped me out, and it would be it would be quite terrifying, especially if the thing on the other side of the glass is not human and you don't know what it is. In 1981, 3 members of the Brem family headed off into the Wisconsin woods for a weekend getaway. A small cabin tucked away off the beaten track seemed like the perfect spot for some rest and relaxation. Sadly, they had no idea that waiting for them in the timber was something straight out of a nightmare. It was August 6, 1981. Patty, 19, and Kim, 15, were the daughters of Mr. and Mrs. Rowley Brem. Their father was a local real estate agent. Their cousin Dave, 15, all lived in Racine, Wisconsin. Dave's mother, Marion Brem, had given the 3 permission to use her A-frame cabin, located near Plainfield, just south of Steve's Point. They arrived late in the afternoon and quickly unpacked their belongings, bringing them inside the cabin. After settling in, the 3 decided to go for a late-day hike through the forest. They made their way down to a small pond not far from the cabin. It was there the 3 began hearing strange animal noises. "We heard these deep growls in the woods and we couldn't figure out what they were made by," Dave told Johnny Yanny, the Racine Shoreline leader. Whatever it was, it yelled about 10 times in a row. The trio ultimately passed it off as some kind of animal they could not identify. As it was getting dark, they thought it best to get back to the cabin. They sat up for a bit, stoking the fire, but eventually they turned in for the night. Kim was the first to wake up the next morning. It was very early. Patty and Dave were still asleep. She quietly went out into the front porch and sat on a bench. It was while sitting there that she thought she saw something watching her from the woods that surrounded the cabin. "I watched it for about 10 minutes. At first I thought it was my imagination," she told Yanny. Due to how still it stood, Kim began to wonder if it was some kind of Indian statue that somebody had propped up. That said, it was strange and she couldn't stop staring at it. Suddenly, it moved. Not only that, it began moving in her direction. This object, whatever it was no statue. She ran and woke up her sister and cousin. "I told Dave what I saw, and he said I was crazy and to go back to sleep." Kim began to wonder what exactly it was she saw. She told herself that it was her imagination and tried to dismiss it. She peered out the window. Nothing was there. She decided that she was going to try to put it out of her mind and get on with enjoying her weekend. Kim had managed to put the strange sighting of earlier that morning behind her. Later that afternoon, she decided to step outside, and this is when things took a much more disturbing turn. I had gone down the outside stairs, and when I got to the bottom, I saw it standing next to the car. It was standing, Kim guessed, no more than 20 to 30 feet away. She described that it was, quote, "at least 7 feet tall with huge shoulders." It was covered from head to toe with thick white hair, which was, quote, "slick, not shaggy." The eyes were like deep black hollows in its head, and you couldn't see any nose or mouth. I was the only one who saw its eyes. Kim, crying, ran up the stairs and into the cabin once again. They thought I was nuts, crazy, she recalled. Patty, wanting to find out what she was talking about, stepped out onto the deck which surrounded the cabin. And that's when she saw it too. I looked down, and it was standing next to the car looking up at me. She immediately turned around and went back inside, alerting Kim and Dave to what she had just observed. Dave dashed outside, but it was gone. Now that two of them had seen the creature, they decided to drive to a nearby diner to call the police. A police officer came to the cabin and questioned them extensively. He looked around the cabin and surrounding forest, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. They thought we were a bunch of crazy kids, but I think the officer who came out believed us. We were scared, Kim noted. Despite two of them seeing the creature, the three opted to stay the remainder of the weekend, hoping that the creature, whatever it was, had moved on. Sometime after the sun went down, Dave was outside sitting on the porch. That's when he caught sight of something strange. I seen it at the edge of the woods, and I could see the upper half of its body. When I saw it, it kind of bent sideways. Then it ducked down and shot out towards the house. I went in and locked the door. That night, Patty, Kim, and Dave sat huddled in one of the upper bedrooms. They claimed they heard noises outside and downstairs in the garage area. We heard crashes and door slamming, and we didn't sleep all night, Kim told Yanny. We tried to convince ourselves we weren't crazy. When the daylight came, the three were calm enough to finally sleep. In the early afternoon, they woke up. Kim says she saw the creature again early Saturday afternoon while she was putting makeup on outside the cabin. Later that afternoon, Dave got up the courage to go for a quick stroll down to the pond. At the cabin, the girls could hear the creature moving around the yard. We heard clawing on the outside of the house and pounding, so we ran out while it was on the other side, jumped in the car, and got Dave. When we got back, nothing was there, Kim told the reporter. When the sun went down Saturday night, Kim, Patty, and Dave decided to lock the doors and not venture outside again. That was the moment that it hit them for real, that they were dealing with something possibly dangerous. None of them even wanted to step outside or make a break for the car, fearing that it would be standing there. As soon as it turned dusk, we were locked in until Monday morning. It just terrorized us, Kim said. Dave told Yanny that the three could see the shadow of the animal walking back and forth in the light from the cabin. It was at that time he thought he saw a second creature approach. The second one came up the stairs. I yelled at it. You couldn't put what I said in the paper, but you can say I cussed at it. We were sick of it. Dave noted that when he yelled, he heard the creature break one of the garage door windows. It could have gotten in. There was nothing stopping him, Dave said. When asked by Yanny why they didn't take a picture of the creature, the three told him that they had not thought to bring a camera. Trips to the cabin were fairly common for the three, so there was no need to bring a camera. The last thing they expected to see was some kind of unknown animal. Kim added that even if they did have a camera, none of them wanted to take its picture. We didn't want to see it. We were scared. According to the three, the creature or creatures continued to stay around the cabin, looking in the windows, pacing back and forth in view of the cabin and making noises outside. We stayed up at night and fell asleep during the day, Kim said, noting that they weren't as aggressive in the daytime. They did not venture back outside the entire day. The thought of running to the car and leaving occurred to them many times, but they were just too spooked to leave. That last night at the cabin proved the most frightening for Patty, Kim, and Dave. Sunday night was the worst. It got very bold. It was patrolling us. The Brem cabin had living quarters upstairs with sliding glass doors that looked out onto the deck. It came right up onto the deck, and we could see it walking back and forth in front of the sliding windows. We sat there on the couch with axes and hatchets and kitchen utensils for weapons, Kim told the reporter. The Brem youth stayed awake all Sunday night. When the morning arrived, the creature or creatures left. That is when they made the final mad dash to the car and tore out of there. It was the first time they had stepped outside the cabin since Saturday afternoon. When Patty, Kim, and Dave arrived home, they immediately told their family, who were unbelieving. Raleigh Brem, the father, admitted that at first he doubted their story. I questioned each of them over and over, and their story was the same. I was skeptical at first, but I saw fear in their eyes. Kim had to sleep with her mom the night they got back, and from what I understand from Dave's mom, Dave has had nightmares about it. Raleigh, who had recently recovered from a heart attack, decided he would go up to the cabin and look around. His friend, Gord Laren, owner of Gordy's Wheel Alignment in town, agreed to go with him. They made the trek up on August 15th and looked around. While they didn't see the creature per se, they did find something that interested them greatly. In the mud next to the pond near the cabin, Raleigh and Gord found 2 sets of human-like tracks. They made a plaster cast of one of the prints. The rest of the tracks were in the water, Laren said. The casting they made showed a foot about 11 inches long with what appeared to be 6 toes. The heel was relatively narrow. From the way the front of the foot dug in, I would say the animal walks with its weight forward, and I would say it weighs about 165 pounds, Laren said. Laren and Brem also found 2 hairs they thought might be from the creature. They planned to have the hairs analyzed at some point. Brem and Laren were reluctant to share the exact location of the cabin and asked that the newspaper not print it. If people find out where it is, you'll have guys from Milwaukee and Madison and Racine up there with their guns and their 6-packs shooting at anything that looks like it will turn white, Laren said. They could have gotten into that cabin anytime they wanted to. That's obvious. I think that their objective was to, it sounded almost like to corral these kids, to scare them, let them know that they weren't welcome there. And if you believe some of the more fringe theories out there about connections between these creatures, these Bigfoot type creatures and extraterrestrials, it's possible that there was something going on in that forest, possibly down by that pond, that they just didn't want these kids going near. And that was their way of kind of keeping them at bay and letting them know that if, you got to go. This isn't, you shouldn't be here. So I wonder how much of a role that pond played in what happened that weekend. They said when they first got there, they had gone down to the pond, it was around dusk. And that's when they heard this commotion. They heard what sounded like kind of like an animal having a temper tantrum. And I wonder if that drew their attention to these kids. If them going down to the pond is what, caused them to become irritated by them. And because later on when Gord and Raleigh went up to the cabin to check it out, they didn't find any tracks around the cottage, around the cabin. They did find them, though, down at the pond. And that makes me wonder if these creatures were spending a lot of time down at that pond. And it makes sense. It's a water source. And if you need water to survive, but also if you're hunting animals to survive, you're going to go where the water is, because that's where all animals need to drink water. So it just makes sense that they would be down there. And it just sounds like these kids had they were just unlucky that they went down there.